COVID-19, we are going to look at a little bit about the virus and more about the pathogenesis. As you all know, as clinicians, unless we do not understand how the disease is rather being caused by the inciting organism or the agent, we will not be able to treat the patient properly. So that is what is called the pathogenesis. So the main important aspect is the pathogenesis here, and we will definitely gain a lot. For example, you see here, this particular virus says this belong to nidorivales, coronaviridae and thoravirinae, and coronaviridae have orthocoronavirinae, and that they have got alpha, beta, delta and gamma coronaviruses. 4 types. Out of that, this alpha is your common cold virus, and beta is the one which is infecting the humans, and this is very important for the the 3 important diseases. The other day we have learned that the virus here is named as SARS-CoV-2 and the disease is named as COVID-19, right? COVID-19 is the disease just like AIDS. The virus is the HIV there. Here it is SARS-CoV-2, Pasteurella pestis, and then that is the organism. And there will be the disease is separate. Likewise, tetanus, Clostridium tetani, and then the tetanus disease. Like that, here the disease is COVID-19, and the organism or the whatever virus is the SARS-CoV-2. What is SARS-CoV? SARS-CoV-1 is the one, the SARS we had around 3 years ago, and that has got very similar architecture to this particular virus. That is why we require to refer to that. Most of the knowledge is borrowed from that as well as the MERS. What is MERS? Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. This MERS and SARS are the ones which have given a lot of insight into the understanding of the present pandemic. Okay, the delta coronaviruses and gamma coronaviruses, they infect the bats, whereas the beta coronaviruses infect the human beings. That is the starting point. Now you see here, please mute your phones, all of you. Coronaviridae family, as I told you, alpha coronavirus, this is your human virus for the common cold, HCOV229E. Whereas the beta coronaviruses are this group, SARS-CoV, MERS and SARS-CoV-2, the present epidemic, and bad CoVs, Delta, Gamma and Corona. Please mute the microphones, don't open the microphones. So this is where we are, and let us go further. What happened actually? The SARS-CoV virus, which was the original SARS virus 3 years back, has interacted with the Wuhan HU1 virus. This is a different virus in the bats. This virus and the SARS-CoV virus, they intermixed and they co-infected the same animal or the cell, and that resulted in crossing over of some of the genetic material of the bat virus to the SARS coronavirus, which resulted in what is the present one called the SARS-CoV-2. Okay, this is the deadly virus that has come out of this combination from the bats there. Now let us understand the virus a bit. As you can see, there are a lot of spikes here, and these spikes are, you can see the cluster-like spikes are called the spike proteins. Very important for us to learn. These are called the spike glycoproteins, and these are the ones through which the virus gains access into the respiratory cell. Okay, you have got the envelope antigens, you have got the nucleocapsid antigens, you have got the membrane antigens. So we have membrane glycoprotein M, nucleic capsid is N, envelope is E, and then the spike protein called the S. N, E, S and M. and you have got this single-stranded positive sense RNA within the nucleocapsid region there. This is a folded single-stranded RNA. This belongs to 2B beta coronavirus. There is a 70% genetic similarity between this and the SARS-CoV virus. Okay, and 80% similar with the bat virus. 50% similar to the MERS virus. Okay, this originated in the bats, as I told you earlier, and the most important mutation that happened is in the spike proteins, and the spike protein DG614G is the one which got mutated and resulted in the present virus. Spike glycoprotein is most important for the cell to gain entry into the human pneumocyte, which has got a receptor called the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor. Angiotensin converting enzymes are twofold, ACE1 and ACE2. ACE2 predominantly expressed in the lung. ACE2's population in the rest of the tissues is very limited. That is why there is no direct onslaught of this virus on any other organs directly other than the lung. That is the basic important point we need to know. So which is the entry point? ACE2. Which particular cell? Pneumocyte 2. There are two types of pneumocytes. I will show you in the picture. And through which it enters? Through the spike protein. What does the M protein, E protein and the N protein do? They increase the pathogenic mechanisms. We will see that. There is a bilayer encapsulating helical nucleocapsid comprising of the viral RNA, which is here. This is all about the virus. This virus, any virus will have called what is called the ORFs. What are ORFs? Open reading frames. These open reading frames are the ones which are amenable for onslaught by the human body, and these frames can be read by the human body because they are not concealed within the virus, and immunogenicity is developed to them. Sometimes they can be harmful also. There are 10 ORFs, out of which the first ORF is very important. It contains about 2/3 of the viral RNA. And there are also called the non-structural proteins. These are called the NS proteins. NSP is non-structural protein. NSP1, NS2, 101 to 16. 16 NSPs. You know that in dengue you do NS1 antigen. What is that NS1 antigen? NS1 antigen is non-specific protein antigen of the dengue virus. You understand? That is the NSP1, 1 to 16 non-structural proteins. What is their role? We will see shortly. The genome, as I told you, has got the spike proteins, S proteins, the envelope, the nucleic acid and capsid, and the membrane protein. These viruses require a very important receptor called the ACE2 receptor, and the spike protein gets attached to that. How does it do that? We will see here. So here you have got the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Hereafter we call it as coronavirus, and this coronavirus gains entry into the cell, lung cell, the pneumocyte 2, through the receptor called the ACE2 receptor. This ACE2 receptor, for it to open door for this one, what is required is the pathogen. There will be what is called there is a proteolytic cleavage of the spike. That means there should be a proteolytic enzyme which cleaves the spike and then allows the spike to open the door into the cell, like a lock and a key. The key is with the virus, and the lock part is with the ACE2 receptor. And for the lock to be, the lock is covered. For the lock to be opened, the key should become ready. And readying that key is what is exactly called the proteolytic cleavage of the S protein. that requires what happens to that, then exactly the spike will come and sit in the ACE2 receptor, and that is called the membrane fusion. After the membrane fusion occurs, the virus is so tricky, it digs the receptor into the cell. It will not allow the receptor to be any more outside. The receptor is submerged into the cell. This is called the endocytosis of the receptor. Why is that important? We will come to know about that. Okay, once that is done, the virus starts replicating inside. That is genomic positive replication, and the ORF1A is the one which is contributing very much for the replication. I told you now the ORFs are open reading frames, and ORF1A and 1B are there. Why 1B is important? This 1B and the spike protein are the ones which we are detecting in your real-time PCR. Your real-time PCR is aimed at the ORF1B and also the spike protein. These are the two regions of the virus which we are trying to capture in the real-time PCR. Okay, so far so good. And now what happens? This particular uncoating happens, and this gets integrated into the endoplasmic reticulum and also into the Golgi apparatus, and the virus vesicles are formed. By exocytosis, the new virion particles are released outside. This is what is the entry and the then. Now imagine if we have a drug which can interfere with the virus from entering into the cell through the ACE2 receptors, the entire game is won. The entire game is won. So that is where exactly the research is going on. And yesterday there is a publication saying linoleic acid is the one which is going to do that. Probably that could be a game changer. We don't know. We will see that. Okay. Now, if you see the virions of the SARS-CoV virus and its similarities, this is the SARS virus 3 years back. This is the MERS virus. This is the SARS-CoV virus. Almost, except 4 or 5 regions, they look exactly similar. That is why whatever pathology or pathogenesis we are seeing here, it is almost replicated in this particular instance also. For that reason, I brought this diagram. Don't worry about this wheel and all. This is a little complicated genomic structure, which is not for us. Okay, now. So how do I diagnose? We have the RT-PCR and then the high thorough output and the ELISA test and the point of care test and CT scan. These are all the diagnostic techniques which will come in the later classes. But what is happening here? You see here the first part we have already seen. Entry of the COVID virus and replication of the COVID-2 virus. Already we have seen that. After that what happens? The viral antigens are there and these antigens are picked up by the macrophages and the dendritic cells and the epithelial cells of the lung. These three will pick up the antigens and these antigens are given to the APC, antigen presenting cells. These antigen presenting cells will carry the antigen along with that, along with the cytokines. They either go to the T cell or the B cell. If they go to the T cell and the APC attaches antigen presenting cell, presents it to the T cell, T cell will mount a response of CD4 or CD8. Unfortunately, this response should be very good and then stop the virus from multiplying. And these responses are blunted by the virus by various mechanisms and CD4, CD8 counts are depleted. That is why the immune response, cell-mediated immunity is not working efficiently here. How about the antigen presenting cell taking it to the B cell? It produces what are called the memory B cells and also the plasma cells. The plasma cells secrete antibodies. These antibodies are again of two types, just like any other viral disease. Immunoglobulin M to start with, which will last for about 4 weeks, and after that the immunoglobulin G takes over. This is the simple story. You would like to go a little deeper here. So what happened? Day one, somebody got exposed to COVID-19, coronavirus, and then day 5, the presentation of symptoms started. By day 10, the dyspnea and then the further worsening in some patients occurs, and patient is hospitalized, admitted, and by day 13, the ARDS sits in, and then lot of havoc occurs. You look at this particular part. So I'll try to explain this, the virus entry here into the lung, and this is the pneumocyte 2, where exactly the replication part we have seen, new viral particles have come, and these new viral particles, what they are doing, they are secreting more fluid into the alveolus, alveolar edema, increased respiratory rate, difficulty in breathing, this is the respiratory part. And this is secreting lot of chemokines, and these chemoreceptors are stimulated there, and SNS is stimulated, tachycardia and increased respiratory rate. Okay, now on the SNS, sympathetic nervous system, there will be increased respiratory rate, and also there will be increased heart rate. On the brain and the hypothalamus, fever, there is vasodilatation, increased permeability occurs, and type 2 pneumocyte cell is affected, and SIRS. What is SIRS? Syndrome, systemic inflammatory response syndrome. Systemic inflammatory response syndrome sets in. That is, there is a systemic vaso-inflammation and vasoactivation, and that leads to circulatory changes in the heart and blood vessels. The blood pressure drops, blood volume drops, perfusion drops, MOD or multi-organ failure occurs. This is in a nutshell what is happening. Let us go a little deeper into the things here. So as you see here in the first part of the diagram here, the SARS virion has entered here through the S protein and the AC2 receptor, and I told you here there is what is called a proteolysis occurs. That proteolysis is possible by the TMPRSS2 protease. This is the protease facilitated by the host cell. The host cell gives a protease to cleave the S protein, and S protein will come and hand over to the itself to the AC2 receptors, the virus. That's how it occurs. Now, what happens after that? The virus pushes the AC2 receptor also inside, and all multiplication and coming outside. Now, as I told you, there are two types of cells. One is called the type 1 pneumocyte, the other one is called the type 2 pneumocyte. Type 1 pneumocyte is the alveolar epithelial cell. There is only one two-cell barrier. The alveolar epithelium and the endothelium of the blood vessel is the barrier between the alveolus and the oxygen carrying the blood there. So, after that, type 1 pneumocyte is not affected in coronavirus. Then what is affected? It is the type 2 pneumocyte that is affected. What is the role of type 2 pneumocyte? We have looked at this when we are talking about ARDS. Type 2 pneumocytes are the supporting cells, and they secrete a substance called the surfactant. Surfactant is required to keep the alveolus open. When the surfactant is not secreted properly, alveoli tend to collapse and coalesce and then accumulate fluid inside. And that is what exactly happened. The virion enters here, and there will be killing of the cell and apoptosis of the type 2 pneumatocyte. Type 2 pneumocyte is affected, surfactant is not there, and it also is required to generate the type 1 pneumocyte. So no new type 1 pneumocytes are replaced, with the result the alveolar functioning endothelium, alveolar epithelium is affected. And the other way what is happening here, there is also the inflammatory cells are incited by the viral entry. Then the T lymphocyte, monocyte, neutrophil, dendritic cell, macrophages all are activated and they produce factors called the TNF-alpha, interleukin-1 and interleukin-2, the major cytokines. There are many cytokines, out of them remember 1, 2 interleukins and then TNF-alpha. These cytokines release and enhance the inflammatory response. What do? They increase the capillary permeability. With the result, the chemokines are secreted from whatever cytokines are secreted, they enter the system and become chemokines and carried into the circulation. And once the opening is made wider, more and more inflammatory cells and fluids start leaking into the alveolus. What will happen then? The alveolus is become a cricket battleground where the cricket is being played by the virus and all the cells there, lot of fluid, and then alveolus, instead of primary function of gas exchange, is now fighting how to remove the fluid. And then the fluid is filled in the alveoli. That sets a stage for the ARDS. Okay. Now, let us enlarge and see in the late stages what happened. Continued inflammatory response results in alveolar interstitial thickening. This is the alveolar interstitium. The whole interstitium is now thickened, pulmonary edema occurs, hyaline membrane formation, thickened interstitium. This is the interstitium which has become very thick. And there is influx of monocytes, increasing T lymphocyte apoptosis occurs, activation of coagulation leads to microthrombi. This is what is called the thromboinflammation. So there are two types of pathways, as you know, in the coagulation cascade, the intrinsic pathway and the extrinsic pathway. It is the intrinsic pathway that is triggered for intravascular coagulation. Here, unlike the regular dick which we see in other conditions where there will be visible macroclots, here there are no macroclots. There is microclot formation, particularly in the lung. So, DVT and then other systemic sort of clot formation is not that common. If there is a DVT, that DVT will produce an embolus into the pulmonary circuit. That is not the pathogenesis here. Here the pathogenesis is primarily microthrombosis of the pulmonary circuit, which is much more dangerous because it is invisible, it cannot be picked up by your angiograms or anything, and small clots form. And of course, later on in the disease, there will be systemic thrombosis also, DVT and all will be there. But to start with, it is the microthrombus formation. Pulmonary thrombi will form. Pulmonary circulation is impeded. What does this mean? Already the lung is not able to exchange the gas here, and the circulation is also compromised. Ventilation, perfusion, mismatch occurs. Some of the alveoli are not ventilated because there is fluid. A little few alveoli which are ventilated to exchange the gas, the blood is not coming because of microcirculation. So both the ventilation is affected and the perfusion is affected. With the result, the gaseous exchange suffers, and hypoxic type of respiratory failure. We have seen earlier respiratory failure as type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 like that. Type 1 is hypoxic respiratory failure. Type 2 is hypercapnic respiratory failure. It is not the retention of carbon dioxide. It is the lack of oxygenation. And type 1 respiratory failure is the one that is occurring. Activation of kinin and kallikrein system can further contribute to local vascular leakage and also angioedema into the pulmonary circuit, which here in this case is called the pulmonary edema. These are the various pathogenic mechanisms in the early and late stages. Let us go a little further. This is the best way to understand COVID pathogenesis. You understand what is called the apocalypse? What is the apocalypse? Anyone can answer, open the mic and answer. What is apocalypse? Pralayam. Pralayam antaru kada meeru. Apocalypse. In the Western mythology, the apocalypse or pralaya are the delusion that occurs. The whole world will be deluded or completely filled with water and covered, and that is occurring due to 4 horses. The apocalypse comes on 4 horses. The same 4 horse theory we can apply here. The first one is the viral replication. What is the primary defense for any virus? The virus enters into the body secretes what is called the interferons. Okay, these interferons interfere with the virus. That is why they are called interferons. But unfortunately, this interferon, which is supposed to prevent the virus multiplication there, it has got a regulatory gene, interferon regulatory gene. So the moment the virus is seen in the respiratory system in the pneumocyte 2, the interferon switch should be on. The gene should switch on the interferon and the interferon should come. What this virus does, it secretes factors which are called the PAMPs and DAMPs. What are PAMPs? Pathogen associated molecular proteins. Pathogen associated molecular proteins, damage associated molecular proteins or patterns. Pathogen associated molecular protein and then damage associated molecular. These blunt the inflammatory response by the IFN. This is interferon switch is put off. It goes and switches off the power switch of the interferons. Interferons factory is there. Their interferons have to produce. It goes and switches off the power switch. So much so no interferons are produced. When there are no interferons, the viral multiplication is not checked. That goes on unchecked multiplication. You see, it is tackling the very important enzyme ACE2 directly and entering into the cell. 2, it is switching off the power switch for the interferon factory in the lung. So the body is sort of helpless and the virus multiplies. This is what exactly is the first phase. So as I told you here, the non-specific proteins, we have non-structural proteins, NSPs are there. These NSP 7 to 15 are the ones which are antagonizing the interferon. As I told you, there are 16 NSPs, 1 to 16, 7 to 15 are anti-interferon. The 7 to 15 as a group, they are going and switching off that. There is what is called the open reading frame. Open reading frame 3, which is called the interferon alpha and beta, and this is antagonizes the interferon alpha and interferon beta to JAK-STAT mechanism. There you know the JAK system, JAK-STAT system. And there are M and N proteins also we have seen in the virus. These flatten the interferon synthesis by the TANK binding kinases. There are what are called the tank binding kinases. They interfere with the tank binding kinases, which results in interferon signaling is reduced. So 3 ways the interferon switches are affected. 1, NSP 715 antagonize the interferon directly. ORF3, that is open reading frame 3, it stops the interferon alpha and beta production by the JAK-STAT pattern. The M and N proteins of the virus, they flatten the interferon signaling. That is the signal transduction to the interferon factory is cut off by the tank binding kinases. These are the micromolecular level. what is happening? In nutshell, what is happening? The defense, the first level of defense or the innate immunity you have against the virus is the interferon. That interferon synthesis is blocked. That is what exactly is happening. Okay, then there will be free viral replication and virus produces PAMPs and DAMPs. These further augment the damage there. Okay, the replication capacity of COVID virus is 3.2 times more than the SARS virus. It is 3.2 times more faster. It replicates than the original SARS-CoV. This is COVID-2 and this is 3.2. The frontline innate immunity is lost. What is happening? The body, the frontline defense itself is lost. That is the first horse of the apocalypse. The apocalypse comes in 4 horses. That is the first horse. The second horse is the angiotensin ACE, angiotensin 2. You know a little bit about this, all of you would have known. We have what is called the angiotensinogen. From that the angiotensin 1 is produced. This is a decapeptide, 10 amino acids, which is further cleaved into angiotensin 2. The angiotensin 2 is the most vasoactive molecule in the human body. This angiotensin 2 acts on AT1 receptors. There are AT1, AT2, AT3 receptors. It basically acts on the AT1 receptors and increases the blood pressure, heart rate, and water retention, sodium retention in order to keep the blood pressure going. That is its normal function. Once the blood pressure is normal, what will happen? This AT1, the angiotensin 2 that is formed from the angiotensin 1 has to be cleaved and removed from the area so that there is no harmful effects of the angiotensin 2. I told you angiotensin 2 is the most important vasoactive molecule. How does it come? It comes from angiotensinogen, angiotensin to angiotensin 1, angiotensinogen 1 to 1, 1 to 2. 2 is a octapeptide, 8 peptides. This has to be there for a short while to keep the blood pressure and then the circulation going on and the sodium balance. But if it lingers there for a long while, it is detrimental. Who takes it away? There is a cleavage enzyme called which removes one peptide, one amino acid from that, and becomes that becomes AG17, angiotensin ANG17. In 8 amino acids become 17 means 7 amino acid, and I will show you in the next slide that acts on MAS-R1 receptors. What is the use of that? We will see there. So somehow the balance of the angiotensin is tilted in such a way that angiotensin degradation is at fault. What happened? Angiotensin is there in large quantities in the lung. What is its effector site? It affects on the AT1 receptor. How is the angiotensin 2 degraded? By the ACE2 enzyme. What happened to our ACE2? All our ACE2 enzyme subunits which are to be outside the cell, they are taken inside by the virus. Because virus poked it like a screwdriver and pushed the ACE2 receptors inside. So there is no ACE2 available to neutralize the angiotensin 2, which means that all the harmful effects of angiotensin are felt and the protective effects are lost. That is what exactly is happening in the angiotensin front. And who is responsible for that? Who is augmenting that? The cytokines, the chemokines, and the platelet dysfunction all are taking part, and this results in this excess of angiotensin 2 results in platelet dysfunction, nitric oxide is low, and then the prostacyclin also is low, and this leads to vascular leakage and further angioedema. Angioedema here is pulmonary edema. Okay, now that is the third horse. The third horse is this ACEs, and there are two types of cells, AEC and EC. What is AEC? Alveolar endothelial cell. Don't confuse these letters with that. That is an enzyme, ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. That ACE. Here it is alveolar epithelial cell. AEC, which is the pneumocyte 2 here, and also there are endothelial cells which line the endothelium of the capillaries of the alveoli. So both the endothelial cells and the pneumocyte 2 are affected, and affected in the sense they are infected by the virus. The virus overtakes the cell and then destroys the cell. That is what is called the apoptosis. Apoptosis means the cell death of alveolar epithelial cell and the endothelial cell, and their integrity is lost. They are no more able to do their function of surfactant production and protecting the endothelium from vascular leakage. Both the functions are lost. Pyroptosis means the temperature in those cells rises because of the inflammation there by the virus, and that temperature itself is detrimental to those cells. So there is a pyroptosis and apoptosis, like somebody is burning the cells with a candle or whatever fire you had. Who is triggering all this fire? The wick is lit by the coronavirus. So this is like a time bomb going on. There are several 4 components, but the wick lighting, ఆ ఒత్తిని అంటించడం అంటారు చూసారా, అది కరోనా వైరస్ చేసేసి వదిలేసింది. Then all this havoc is happening. Why these AECs and ECs are apoptosis? They can't tolerate excess of these chemicals there. There are excess cytokines, there are excess chemokines, and T cells which are the protectors of that. There is T cell lymphopenia. Very early in the disease, if you see the lymphopenia and leukopenia and platelets are less, it is a bad prognosis for the patient. These are early indications in your blood counts itself. Cytokines, chemokines, all these things act through the T cell lymphopenia, and cytokines will lead to infiltration of the mononuclear cells and polymorphonuclear leukocytes and M macrophages. That M with that theta-like thing is called macrophage. Okay, this is the third horse. What happens? Now the EC dysfunction, that is the endothelial dysfunction, that leads to what is called the tissue factor release. I told you there are two pathways. One is called the extrinsic pathway, the other is called the intrinsic pathway. The intrinsic pathway is now triggered, and the extrinsic pathway through the tissue factor. Extrinsic pathway and intrinsic pathway, they cross at the X factor X. Factor X, activated factor X with AC globulin and calcium will convert prothrombin into thrombin. That is, thrombin is generated, and thrombin is the most potent enzyme in the whole of the globe. Thrombin, excess thrombin produces all havoc, and that platelet dysfunction also will occur, and all these things, this is called the neutrophil factors, called the netosis. Neutrophil factors are there from the neutrophils. These also produce this is called the thromboinflammation. So what is happening? One is viral replication, the other is the angiotensin 2 dysregulated balance, the third is the apoptosis due to cytokines, and the fourth is the thromboinflammation. All these are overlapping one another, and ultimately the end is overlapped by all the mechanisms. What is DAD? It is not father. Dad here is diffuse alveolar damage. Diffuse alveolar damage. What is Ali? Ali is acute lung injury. ARDS you all know. Acute respiratory distress syndrome. We had a very big seminar on acute respiratory distress syndrome. And EOD, end organ damage. These are the final things that happen. That is diffuse alveolar damage due to fluid, due to chemicals, due to cells, due to excess virus replication, everything. Acute lung injury because the circulation is compromised and there is fluid. The lung injury, both the ventilation and perfusion have suffered. Acute respiratory distress syndrome because there is thickening of the interstitium, there is hyaline formation, hyalinization, and that leads to difficulty in the exchange of the gas. So the interstitium also is affected. There is nothing that is left which is not affected, which results in end organ damage. Why end organ damage? Hypoxic end organ damage is one, chemokine related end organ damage is one, microthrombi related end organ damage is the other. Three ways the organ systems are damaged: one by the microthrombi, two by the cytokines and chemokine, three by the hypoxia. That leads to death of the patient. Now let us look at a little more carefully here. This is the infected type 2 pneumocyte with the virus there, and then this weeps, and that weeping is the chemokines. These chemokines are tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 10, interleukin 6, macrophage chemoattractant protein 1, interleukin 1b. All these are secreted in excess. These act on the alveolar endothelial cell, epithelial cell, which is called the type 1 pneumocyte, and the nuclear factor kappa B and ROS systems are activated, and through the apoptosis of this cell also dies. So type 2 pneumocytes are affected and there is flooding. There are fibroblasts and endothelial dysfunction is caused due to chemokines. The vascular spaces are opened up. Fluid starts leaking here. There is flooding of fluid into the interstitium and then into the alveolus. This is what is called the cytokine storm. We call every one of you now know there is cytokine storm, cytokine. What is the cytokine storm? Cytokine storm is excess production of the chemical molecules. Understand here, cytokine and chemokine. Cytokine is a kininase or kine is one which is active molecule. Cyto from the cell. Locally, if the damage is occurring, it is called cytokine. If the same cytokine gets into the blood and gets somewhere and damages all parts of the body, it is called a chemokine. So cytokine is local damage and chemokine is nothing but a widespread damage is the chemokine. So these are the endothelial cell death occurs, and then because of the endothelial dysfunction and ROS, and ultimately not on the inflammatory cells fluid, everything leaks into the place where there should be no fluid. Normally there should be no fluid in the alveoli and surfactant should keep it open. Both the functions are gone. Now what happens in this one? At this ACE part, I wanted to show you a little more detail about that. What happens is, I told you angiotensin 2 is the vasoactive molecule and this acts on the AT1 receptors and that leads to inflammation, fibrosis, vasoconstriction is its phenomenon. But that is required to have some amount of vasoconstriction and keep the blood pressure. But when this is in the endothelial cell of the vasculature, it is important. But in the lung, if it does, this is what will happen: increased activity of angiotensin 2 here. But this angiotensin is cleaved, as I told you, one amino acid is removed from the 8 amino acids to become angiotensin 1,7. For that, the enzyme required is ACE2. What happened to our ACE2? The virus has punched it with a screwdriver-like thing with spike protein and pushed it inside the cell. All the ACE2 receptors which are outside to tackle this particular molecule are no longer available. They are pushed by the virus into the cell. And normally these receptors are kept open by what is called the ADAM17. I'll tell you what is that. And this ADAM17 is inactivated so that the receptors are not allowed to float up onto the cell. There is no exteriorization of the receptor. Instead the receptors are folded into the cell. So net result is AC enzyme is not working. If this is not working properly, this builds up. When this builds up, this triggers the negative responses here. Suppose this normal pathway, it gives rise to angiotensin 1,7 and this 1,7 acts on MASR1 receptors. This MASR1 receptors are very protective. They are anti-inflammatory, anti-fibrosis, vasodilation, green receptor. Unfortunately, this molecule is not formed, so this receptor is not doing its proper job. Also remember, women are protected compared to men in this pandemic. The reason is women express a lot of MASR receptors. The MASR receptor population in women is much higher compared to men. We know that the relative risk of being a man is 1.7 to 1.8 times. Suppose if 100 women are affected and they succumb to the disease, here 180 men succumb. That is the difference between male and female, and we are seeing even more. All the studies have shown 66 to 34. 66% deaths in men and 34% in men, even after matching for the age and the comorbidity. This excess mortality and excess onslaught of the disease in men is because men in general have got high levels of vasokines, chemokines and cytokines in general. Second thing is the mass receptor expression in male gender is rather poor. And also Indians are notorious to have not good amount of this one. Some races are even poorer in the ACA things. At least we are in between that, and that way, our mortality probably is not that bad in this pandemic. So these are some of the further insights into the mechanisms that are happening. Now you see the virus has entered, just summarizing the thing, and then the viral RNA are produced, transcribed here, the replication occurs, new virions are produced, the interferon factory is switched on and the interferon gene is activated, and that should interfere with that, but unfortunately in 3 different mechanisms this interferon factory is put at rest and it is not working. So interferon release is not there and virus is freely multiplying. Okay, it also activates the polymorphonuclear leukocytes and T cells and the macrophages which produce several chemokines and cytokines as are listed here, and this also affects not only the T cells but also the B cell immunity. So all this is occurring in the lung epithelium. That's why it is called the cytokine. Once it comes into the system, it is chemokine, and that results in extensive tissue necrosis, damage, destruction, influx of all the inflammatory cells, and dilatation and leaky capillaries in the lung. It is basically not a vasculitis. It is basically alveolitis. And then the vasculitis is also not generalized. It is localized vasculitis in the lung. Can any one of you tell me why we don't have a blood test to detect the antigen in the blood? Why are we not able to do a blood test to find out, just as we do NS1 antigen in dengue? Why not do an antigen test in the blood and find out coronavirus? What is the answer? Because the coronavirus doesn't get into viremia. The viremia is very, very low. 1%, 2% viremia compared to other diseases, that to 1 to 2 days. It doesn't last.
It's remain in the alveoli.
It remains in the area local. It doesn't go into the systemic circuit. It is no viremia. If there is a viremia, I would have prepared a test to immediately detect by just taking a drop of blood and putting on the card. That is not possible because the viremia is so low and so short-lived that it cannot be picked up normally. By the time the viremia is over, patient starts symptomatic. By the time his symptomatic viremic phase is over. It is in the pre-symptomatic or the prodromal phase only the viremia occurs. So we cannot detect this virus in the blood for that reason. The only fluid is bronchial secretions, airway secretions, nasopharyngeal secretions. Saliva, of course, is also a poor replicator of the respiratory secretions. So all the time easier. Now there is a new test being developed, very easy test. It will come into maybe in another month or so. Just a drop of saliva is adequate to detect the virus. That they have intensified the ways of augmenting the viral load in the saliva, and it is a card test based on a drop of saliva, which makes things much easier if it comes into the field. It is already being tested in the Southeast Asian countries. Now, that is where a little bit away from the research, but what is available now is the RT-qPCR. RT-q means quantitative PCR. RT quantitative PCR and also the RAT test, rapid antigen test. Both look at the two antigens. One is the spike protein, the other is the ORF1b. ORF1b and this one. Regia, I will answer your questions at the end. Please put your hand down. So, the viremia is not there, that is why there is no blood test as of now, and the entire thing is within the alveolus, the whole thing is happening. Of course, in the terminal stages, there is sepsis, there is viremia, there is flooding of everything into the circulation. That is not we are interested. We wanted to pick up it very early. That's the problem. Now you see, this is for the treatment. What are all the things that one can do? Can we just keep our hands folded and see nothing can be done? We just wait and for people to die? Or is there anything that we can do? Already we are doing. What is that? So interferon gamma is the one which is then activates the antiviral gene. So there is an interferon gamma, and we have got now to switch on the interferons. We are having the interventions to start the interferon gamma, and the second one is for the vasoactive inflammation, the thromboinflammation, and the cytokines. We have powerful steroids being used. And I tell you, when we come to the treatment, we will discuss. But today, generally, viral infections should not think about steroid. Here, you cannot but think about steroid. You have to start very early, most likely probably at the very onset of the first symptom itself. The guidelines are going to change very rapidly, and we are going to have lab manufactured immunoglobulin G. Hitherto we are using convalescent plasma, and we have got a monoclonal immunoglobulin G replicated like a Xerox machine in the lab against the coronavirus, which will tackle and the spike protein and allow it not to attract the ACE cell. That is still a little away. Maybe next month immunoglobulin G will be available. IV immunoglobulin. You know, when you have a rabies bite, the rabid dog bite, you give immunoglobulin G RIG. RIG you give, and also your Rabipur. That RIG is the prepared immunoglobulin there, and the Rabipur injection is the active active viral particle which triggers active immunity. So both active and passive immunity we trigger. If there is a very bad bite and laceration by a dog, we use RIG. And likewise, we use, immunoglobulins in other diseases. Here also, IV immunoglobulin possibility has been very thoroughly being explored, and that will definitely help in the immune regulation. Immune system is dysregulated. And another thing I forgot to tell you was, there is what is called the T cell response is the trigger for the B cell response, because T cell is the main office. So anybody has to go and tell the T cells, and the T cell will decide whether it will use the cell mediated immunity or it will use the antibody mediated immunity. So any antigen which is presented to the T cell directly tackles. Circulating things it cannot do, because T cells cannot, they are fixed in number and they are also in the tissues only. And the T cells, for them to have a remote action is difficult. For that, the immunoglobulins are produced to the plasma cells and use the B cells. Here both the immunities are triggered. Now, this triggering of the immune response is under the control of what is called the T cell R, what is called the regulator T cell. There are several types of T cells: cytotoxic T cells called the killer T cells, helper T cells which are called the immunohelper T cells, and memory T cells which are called the M T cells. They are also called the TR cells, which are the regulator T cells. This virus is switching of the regulator T cell. Bhavanda, it is switching of the regulator T cell, and body is not knowing when to stop the immune response. Then it is mounting excess immune response, much in excess of what is required. If, let us say, if 10 molecules of interleukin is required, it is producing 1000 molecules, because the trigger where it has to say stop is missing. The guidelines are the gene which has to say it has to stop. The TR cell is affected. This is another way it is hitting. So how do I do that? I give corticosteroids and then block the inflammation, or give the immunoglobulins. That is what is called the interleukin 1B antagonist, which is called the anakinra. You all know, we use this in our rheumatoid arthritis patients, anakinra. Anakinra is a good drug, but it's being tried and not really found very useful in this pandemic. But then, and congeners of that interleukin 1B antagonists will be tested, and they will probably come. Now we have got tocilizumab. This all of you must be knowing. Tocilizumab is simply called by clinicians as Toci. I have given 1 dose of Toci. And that Toci is interleukin 1 inhibitor. It reduces the interleukin 1, and that is the weapon we have. TNF alpha blockers also we are having. They are also being tried, and the TNF alpha is another mediator, and it could act on that. And we also got the interferon alpha beta receptor blockers are there, wherein the interferon alpha and beta receptor blockers or antagonists are required, because these interferons are the ones which perpetuate the inflammation. These are not the protective interferons. So we want to interfere with them. And chloroquine has been extensively tried as an immunomodulator, and the success has been rather, not very good. It's showing that it is not really very helpful. This is the hypothesis of chloroquine work. That is what is called the ulinistatin. That is another molecule like a statin. And even now, today we are saying that statins probably could be useful in the immune inflammation here. Irinotecan is another molecule which acts on the OXPL. What is OXPL? I'll tell you. And also on the S1P. The S1P is a sphingosine, and the S1P and the OXPL are two inflammatory areas where they can be blocked. Inflammation can be blocked. And of course, stem cell therapy, wherein we generate stem cells which interfere with the immune inflammation. And finally, we have got a technique which is in place in our hospital here, which is called the CytOrb. What is CytOrb? CytOrb is a machine which absorbs all the chemicals, the chemokines and lymphokines, or the chemicals in the body. Selectively, it filters or absorbs those things and then leaves the blood pure. Something like your dialysis for a kidney patient, something like your leukophoresis in leukemia patient, something like your plasmapheresis for bad plasma factor. Here a technique called the CytOrb. Very expensive, but then it is being tried, and the CytOrb will fit inflammatory mediation, and the storm is the real problem in a given patient. CytOrb should be very effective. So we have the ARDS, multi-organ dysfunction, apoptosis of the endothelial cell, epithelial, pulmonary epithelial cell, endothelial cell of the blood vessel, epithelial cell of the alveolus, and the T cells that are recruited, they all are dying here. And these can be prevented. There are also a few more areas where we can interfere, like TLR7 antagonist, CCR2 antagonists, and ROBO4 signal pathways. These will be the future drugs which will try to tackle. So now these already we have around 4 or 5 things in place, and patients are being treated with those things. This is to give you an idea how the future of this treatment of coronavirus epidemic or any other similar virus in future, with so many areas where we can interfere, is there. The chemokines are called CCL2, CCL3, 7, 12 like that, and there are the chemokine receptor blockers are being used there. So this is in a nutshell the thing, and now this summarizes where you are. Coming to all the science is being merged into clinical action, because what is the purpose of this science, the pathogenesis? To become a good clinician. How do I do that? The viral response starts very much in the initial stages and goes on blunted by around 2 to 3 weeks. This is 2 weeks and this is 3 weeks. And the host inflammatory response starts in the first week and middle in the second week. By third week it is maximum. In some patients it arrests here, and some patients inflammatory response continues, and hyperinflammatory phase or stage 3 occurs. Here the clinical symptoms are mild constitutional symptoms, dry cough, diarrhea, headache will be there during the stage 1 or early infection. Majority of them they remain here, they will not progress. Some of them they go into the pulmonary phase. This is called the ILI like illness, influenza like illness. This is called the pneumonia, starting pneumonia phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is without desaturation, phase 2 with desaturation, shortness of breath, hypoxia, the PaO to FiO2 ratio. If it is more than 300, it is phase 1. If it is less than 300, it is already ARDS setting, and that is 2B. And abnormal chest imaging, you can see transaminases will be elevated, procalcitonin will be very low or normal in these cases. And finally, when the stage 3 inflammation occurs, this is immune inflammation, thromboinflammation, cytokine storm, all that leads to ARDS, SIRS. That is, SIRS is, I told you, systemic inflammatory response syndrome, and shock and cardiac failure, elevated inflammatory markers. You do CRP, LDH, IL, D-dimers, ferritin, anti-proBNP, TROP. All these are the inflammatory markers we use to measure whether a particular patient is in for a serious disease or cytokine storm. Then what are the potential therapies you have? Antivirals, fluvipanavir or remdesivir, or the drugs here, antimalarials, whatever it is worth, nucleoside analog drugs, The other nucleoside analog drugs which are used to arrest the viral multiplication, and then the convalescent plasma. This is where, patient has recovered from COVID, and then you match it, and of course you have to match the convalescent plasma as the antibodies, particularly the IgG type of antibodies there, and also IgM also. And that is being used, and with not great success, but it is being used in several centers. And of course, you have got the immunosuppression by steroids. It appears that we have to start the steroids right here, the very second or third day as of now. But the recommendation is, of course, from here, you have to use from the 7th day or 6th or 5th day once there is pneumonia, but before that also, trials are showing that we may have to use steroids very early on, particularly if the patient is aged, if the patient is having comorbidities, if the patient is a male. So these are the three conditions, like a male gender, comorbidities, and then the aged person, and if the CRP is raised to start with, you are justified in putting at least oral steroids as of now. Of course, corticosteroids, human immunoglobulin, that's what I said, the IVIG, and interleukin-6 inhibitors, the TOSI there, and interleukin-2 inhibitors and JAK inhibitors are under trial. This is from bench to the bedside. So bench is all the tests they do and how you can bring it onto the bedside. Bench to bedside, in this disease we cannot take 5 years. We have to be very quick and translate the bench information to the bedside as fast as we can. We want to not only terminate the pandemic but also arrest the morbidity and mortality for the various patients. So this is to just summarize whatever we have thought of. This is the first viral and onslaught here. The ACE2 receptor viral binding there. Our own cell protein is cleaving the receptor to allow it to inside. That means there is a conspiracy by our own cell giving the key from the back door to the spike protein, and the proteolysis is occurring because of TMPRSS2 proteolytic enzyme, and that affects the ACE. The ACE is folded inside, and I told you what will happen. There is a direct cytotoxic effect of the cell by the virus, and that is the apoptosis of the pneumatocyte 2 and also the endothelial cell EC and AEC, alveolar epithelial cell and EC endothelial cell. Then the dysregulation of the RAS, I said, angiotensin 1 is normally converted to angiotensin 2, but some of the angiotensin 1 is converted into angiotensin 1,9, which is cleaved to 1,7. This is 1,7 is a protective molecule through the MERS receptor. Now this angiotensin 2 also should be converted. For this we require the SCA2 enzyme both here as well as here. Unfortunately, this is sleeping, this is taken inside by the virus. So what happens? Angiotensin 2 becomes more, and if angiotensin 2 is detrimental by vasoconstriction and proliferation and inflammation, whereas the protective effect, vasodilatation, anti-inflammation effect of MAS receptors is rather blunted. I told you that in women, the MAS receptors are better compared to men, and also the genital racially also there is a difference. The third one is there is an endothelial damage, not only the epithelial damage. The endothelial damage produces a lot of inflammatory molecules, and these cells start leaking, and the leaked cells start producing IL-6, TNF-alpha, D-dimer, all those things, and those are the inflammatory molecules which produce what is called the thromboinflammation. Finally, dysregulated immune response in proportion to the inflammation. If there is a inflammation is it in proportion to infection, it is fine. But the infection is trivial, the inflammatory response is very high. This is called the disproportionate or dysregulated immune response. How does it occur? Because of T-cell lymphopenia, because of deactivation of the regulator T-cells also. Inhibition of interferon signaling, hyperactive innate immunity, and also T-cell lymphopenia is there, and the T-cell regulatory gene is switched off. All this lead to what is called cytokine release syndrome or cytokine storm, is so-called, we describe it. Tissue injury and remodeling, inflammation, vasoconstriction, and vascular permeability, so many factors are affected. So again, the SARS-CoV virus, the replication there, the direct activation, immune complexes, toll-like receptors, complement mediated, this one that hypocomplementemia occurs. And these are the inflammatory molecules. In this process, macrophage, neutrophils also take part. There is a local injury in the lung. It is not a systemic injury to start with. So, okay, virus entry, day 0, replication, here you have remdesivir, ritonavir, leponavir are the nucleoside analogs. And ACE inhibitors, can we give here? There is a trial going on, but they are not supposed to be working at the moment. And then 3 to 5 days and 5 to 7 days, 7 to 14 days ARDS sets in. Here all the invasive, non-invasive ventilation, we'll be discussing those things. And these are the specific pathways of anti-complement 3 antibodies and anti-C5, anti-interleukin, then anti-interleukin 1, anti-IFNs, all these treatments will work. So please mute. Please mute your microphones. Please mute your microphones. Please mute your microphone. Hello, please mute your microphone. Rekha, you can't talk to the group. Rekha. Okay, now what is happening in the clinical scenario? The asymptomatic phase here, 3 to 14 days symptomatic, but no evidence of pneumonia. Prodromal, then the pneumonic phase, and then the pneumonia with hypoxia and immunological injury, the critically ill shock, multi-organ dysfunction and ARDS. The body's immune responses, adaptive immunity, cytokine production, regulation of inflammation, killing of the infected cells, and induction of antibodies, all are being tried. This is, I told you, TR, that is the T regulator cells. These are switched off. Cytokine production is overactive, and infected cells are by cytokine, that is the T killer cells will kill the cells there, and also the antibodies are misdirected and then out of proportion. What is all happening? I'm going to stop here, and of course you understand that what is called the thromboinflammation. On one side it is thrombosis, the other side it is inflammation, the time bomb is triggered, and the intravascular coagulation, microclots, TTP, hemolytic uremic syndrome, antiphospholipid syndrome, deep vein thrombosis, thrombophlebitis, vasculitis, biomaterials, sepsis, inflammatory injuries, sickle cell disease, major trauma, transplant rejection, preeclampsia, severe burns, atherosclerosis, hypertension, SLE, rheumatoid arthritis. These also produce similar illness, but these individually produce one aspect, but our disease produces everything. So the 4-horse hypothesis of apocalypse or the pralaya occurs. There is vascular endothelitis, platelet related, and endothelial dysfunction. The Witkos stride is fulfilled, and vascular endothelium, both intrinsic and the extrinsic pathways are triggered. We have what are called the macro von Willebrand factor, unlike the microprotein, micropeptide there, and these attract the platelets more and then produce what is called the thromboinflammation.